And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host. He is American-made from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Yes, that's right. Just like the American badass. But hey, to my Canadian-made host, how was your Canada Day?
Well, I'm here in Ottawa, Ontario. It's a pretty big party here. I think they said 400,000 people were downtown at one point. The lineup to get to Parliament Hill at one point took 5 hours to get past all the security checkpoints. But, it was a quiet Canada Day and just chilled here at the house and, just got caught up on other stuff. And it was a nice, relaxing day here. But I know that's not how the Americans celebrate their independence, that's for sure.
I don't know if it's that much different. I mean, beer and barbecue, probably the same both sides of the border, I would think.
Fireworks, too.
Well, yeah, the fireworks are the same in both places, so really not that different.
No. But it was a hell of a party here, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of parties tonight on July the 4th. But, Stevie, we've got two big shows. Two big shows to talk about. I know, kayfabe. Two big shows this weekend to talk about, and we got lots of news to get to as well. And let's start with a story we covered a few weeks ago. Involving one of my favorite states, Texas. And,
Courtney Casey.
Courtney Casey's win over Jessica Aguilar has been restored, and she has had her suspension of 90 days been rescinded by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation.
They basically admitted they were incompetent at administering a drug test.
How is that possible?
I don't know, but they tested her positive the first time, and then they tested her again on the B sample, and it came back negative, so they had to admit they had screwed up somewhere.
So maybe they took the wrong jar, or maybe
it was a false positive on the first test? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Either way, they're basically throwing their hands up and saying, somehow, we fucked this up, so you get your win back, you get your record cleared, and you're all good to go. And Courtney Casey's like, no, actually, I'm not good to go because now everybody thinks I'm a drug test cheater, that I'm trying to get away with something. You guys ruined my reputation, so thanks for giving me my win back, but you still suck.
Now, a name that you and I both are very familiar with, Mark Ratner, former head of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, says that the Mayweather-McGregor fight helps both boxing and mixed martial arts.
I wonder where he draws that conclusion from.
Well, if it helps both sports, I can see it helping MMA. I'm not sure if it helps boxing, really.
Yeah, Gigi kind of already broke that down when we had him on the show. He's not even sure it really does anything good for boxing because it's just such a one-time event. It doesn't really promulgate the sport to any degree.
No, it doesn't. Definitely does not. It's just, I think I'll be happier when the fight's over, just because I think the expectation that cannot possibly be met.
No.
All right. Well, let's talk about a fight that was supposed to be this weekend, but it got pushed back to 214, where I know they're lacking in big fights for 214. Sarcasm. Donald Cerrone and Robbie Lawler. Due to Cerrone being injured, I think he had staph infection.
Yeah, some sort of blood poisoning or infection like that. But it's funny because on last week's show, I teased that we would be previewing that fight this week, but no, we won't, because it has to be postponed, and it seems like with good reason, because if he's got something that serious, he shouldn't be fighting.
Now, is that the co-main event? Because for those who don't know, 214 is the long-awaited John Jones-Daniel Cormier fight.
I think it would probably be second or third from the top on that card.
Yeah, it's pretty high profile, and that definitely could influence one fighter with a dominant win there, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Now, why don't you talk about Alistair Overeem, because he had quite the Tuesday morning.
Yeah, this story is pretty wild. He was staying in a hotel before his fight at UFC 213 with Fabricio Verdum, and there was an explosion at the hotel, and Overeem wasn't even going to do anything about it. He heard a loud boom, and he was like, oh, whatever that was, who cares? And then one of his teammates rushed in and was like, bro, we gotta get the fuck out of here right now. And then you see on his Twitter, there's like 4 different shots of him outside the hotel. There's a fire truck outside. There's all sorts of fighters outside. I guess a lot of fighters were probably staying at this particular hotel in Albuquerque, probably because, they're all Jackson Winklejohn fighters, and they're all just like staying there in town, either because they're training or because they just don't want to go to Vegas until it's time for the fight.
So, it's kind of scary when someone knocks on your door saying, we have to leave. And then you've got someone like, I don't know, Nick Diaz, who when someone knocks on his door doesn't answer it 3 times and is now provisionally suspended. Some say he'll never fight again.
Yeah, him and Ronda Rousey, Dana White said, I don't think we'll see either of them back, each for different reasons.
Yeah, well, Diaz has to get past the provisional suspension at this point.
Honestly, when they threw the book at him the last time and everybody said, that's too excessive, this is his livelihood, you can't do that to him, and they reduced it, I said, no, that's crap. He's flagrantly flaunted the rules multiple times. Why should we let him get away with this? Why can't he be suspended indefinitely? And everybody's like, you're being too harsh. He deserves to make a living. Fine. Las Vegas reduced his suspension, or I should say, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which oversees Las Vegas, reduced it. Whatever. But then here he goes again and just says, well, screw you, Sada. I don't have to answer the door. I don't have to give a test. Even though each time you refuse to appear for a test, that is considered a violation of the drug test policy. So he failed the test. That's all there is to it. And you're suspended when you fail. And I just don't even know what to say with Nick Diaz flaunting the rules over and over again. I don't have anything against him personally. I think he's a charismatic fighter. I think he's I would say above average fighter. I don't know if he's elite considering how many elite fighters have beaten him over the years, but I'd say if you put him against any regional fighter anywhere in the country, he would beat them, and anybody other than the top 5 in his own weight class, he'd probably beat them. But is he even worth it when he just completely disregards all the rules regarding being a professional athlete in the sport? If you can't abide by the simple requirements to be licensed to be a fighter, then you shouldn't be fighting. It's not a right, it's a privilege. You get the privilege of fighting when you get sanctioned by the athletic commission in the state in which you reside, and he just chooses to ignore any of the basic requirements to get sanctioned to fight.
So the problem that I have with this is simply Diaz, I think he's lost the will to fight. I think the fire's not there anymore.
I don't think it's been there for either of the Diaz brothers for a while. I think, especially with his brother, he took the massive payouts that he got from the 2 fights with Conor McGregor and said, fuck it, I don't need to fight again. I'm paid. And I think Nick got paid so much from his George St. Pierre fight that he probably didn't have to fight again either.
Yeah, but if you go in the cage and you don't want to win, you're in the wrong business.
Well, I kind of think the Diaz brothers are in the wrong business unless it's stirring up shit and throwing water bottles at people and causing controversy at World Series of Fighting, which isn't even WSOF anymore. Now they're the Professional Fighters League. We should probably talk about that too when we get through with this.
We'll get there. UFC Fight Night 115 in the Netherlands has a fight that, Stevie, I think you might be interested in.
Oh, really?
Leon Edwards against Brian Barberena.
Yeah, I would watch that fight. That's a fight I would want to see.
Those are 2 fighters. I don't want to say both are underrated, but don't sleep on these guys, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. I think they're known enough to not be slept on, but they might be slept on in terms of how good the fight could be with each other.
It could be a case of, it's a Netherlands show, so it's not going to be like your Cormier Jones card, and you could really have this fight.
This is probably a UFC Fight Pass card. This is something that airs on the service if you're already paying for it. I don't know. I don't think it's on FS1.
No. Let's see. What else is in the news? Albert Morales is replacing Mitch Gagnon. Morales fights Brett Johns at Fight Night 113.
Okay.
And we do have an update. Some people have been asking me on Twitter and private message on Facebook. Any update on Matt Hughes?
Yeah, he was taken off the ventilator and he can breathe on his own. He's showing some limited signs of improvement, which basically means he's not out of the woods yet. It's still a very, very long road ahead.
Which, slow and steady does win the race, and hopefully he makes a full recovery, but any possible thoughts of him having a speedy recovery and one day entering the cage or the octagon ever again are diminishing very rapidly.
I would venture to say that much like Katsuyori Shibata in New Japan, the severity of the injury means he's never doing anything athletic again. It's very, very unlikely.
And for those who don't know that story, look up New Japan Pro Wrestling and Shibata and Headbutt.
Yeah, it's a traumatic brain injury in both cases, although Shibata at least got the subdural hematoma drained and will have some sort of life. Right now, we don't even know what kind of life Matt Hughes is going to have until he's medically cleared and fully conscious and alert and talking to people, and we don't even know what the prognosis is for that.
I have an update for the Tough 25 finale that just happened yesterday, in fact. Steve Boss is out of his fight against Jared Cannonier. Boss's replacement, Nick Roerick.
Boss is the former hockey player, right?
Yep, exactly. His last fight was here in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm. That's a shame. I'm sure you're bummed about that.
Well, you don't pull out of a fight last minute unless it's an injury. There's no way.
Right, and Cannonier is a quality fighter too, and Boss was definitely going to get some good forward momentum by winning that fight if he did, so he wouldn't want to not take that fight.
Now, we do have some sad news, and there's not much details right now. We'll probably have more details on next week's show, but a member of American Top Team, a fighter who had an 8-1 amateur record and 2-2 pro record, Aaron Rajman, was shot dead in his home today in Florida.
Yeah, that's just breaking as we're recording the show tonight, and that's why we can't tell you much more than that, because nobody even knows why it happened or what led up to it. Maybe it was a home invasion, maybe it was... There
actually is a statement from the detectives.
Oh.
He was killed during an argument with several men when they entered the home and fired at least one shot at him. The men drove away. The sheriff's office says it has no motive for the fatal shooting and is treating it as a homicide.
Well, that just leaves the same questions open I was just going to pose. Was it a personal dispute? Was it a home invasion to rob him? Was it both? We don't know. And it doesn't even matter because it's tragic. It's a life cut short and a promising MMA career that we'll never get to see now. So all I can say is my condolences to his family, to his teammates, to everybody involved. It just sucks.
And there was a tie-in to this weekend's shows as Tisha Torres shared a tribute on Instagram today as well.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's Top Team, so obviously there's going to be a lot of people who know him and trained with him.
Yeah, it's a sad thing to hear, and let's move on to something positive before we talk about the cards. You want to talk about the former World Series of Fighting?
Yeah, the Professional Fighters League, as they are now being called, held a show over the weekend in Daytona Beach, Florida, at the racetrack. And this...
At the racetrack?
Well, yeah, because they have an infield where you can go and have, fan events and meet and greets and things like that. I've been to a NASCAR race before. I know what this is like. They let you down there to the infield. You can do meet and greets and autographs and take pictures and all that fun stuff. And then when the race is about to start, they clear the infield and everybody goes back up to the concourse and watches the race. So what the former World Series Fighting was going to do was they were going to have an event after the Xfinity NASCAR Coca-Cola Firecracker 250. I believe that's the correct order of the words, but if I'm wrong, sorry. It's all of those different things in the title of the name of the race. Anyway, the fights were supposed to start after the race was over. They would let everybody back down to the infield, and they have a pavilion called UNOH or whatever, and there's a tent over the ring in case of weather or inclement conditions or whatever, which there were, and those inclement conditions actually canceled the race.
Oh.
So they decided, well, we got all the fighters here, we got all the fans who came for the race, so we're just going to go ahead and have these fights right now instead of after the end of the race. So I was supposed to be covering the fights at approximately 9:30 Central Time. That's when they figured the race would be done, and it would take like 10 or 15 minutes to get all the fans from the concourse down to the infield to watch the fights. So I'm eating dinner with my wife, and I come downstairs, and I had left the TV on tuned to the right channel, thank God. And I come downstairs, and I hear, "Your winner by unanimous decision, Ronnie Marks." I'm like, oh, they must be showing some old fights from a previous card for World Series of Fighting to promote the PFL show tonight. And then I look at the bug in the corner of the screen, and it says live. And wait a minute, this wasn't supposed to start for 90 minutes. What the hell's going on? And I start emailing people, and I find out the race was canceled because of inclement weather. So, thankfully, I was able to rewind it to about the first minute of the fight. I only lost 60 seconds of the very first fight, and I was still able to watch the whole card. But these poor guys were slipping and sliding around on the canvas trying to have these fights because the rain was blowing in sideways through the tent. The awning,
thanks, Ollie.
The awning didn't help one bit. And then, of course, it's Southern Florida. It's very humid there. I speak from personal experience from going to WrestleMania and a convention, and it's just hot and muggy and miserable. And these guys are sweating. They're slipping. People are trying to apply submissions and failing because everybody's slipping out of everything. They're slipping, falling down, trying to go for takedowns. They're slipping, going for kicks. There was only one really successful submission out of all four of these fights, and it was in the John Fitch Brian Foster fight, and it came so suddenly and so out of nowhere that in the post-fight interview, John Fitch said, "Yeah, we call that the ninja choke. You're out before you even know what's on you."
Every time because you use that phrase a lot, to rain sideways, and it's always that, thanks, Ollie, because I've been in rain, played baseball in rain where it comes in sideways. It's not fun when you're playing out in the outfield or in the infield, but can you imagine doing an MMA event? No.
No, but they had to do something because apparently they felt like these fans all came here, they deserved to see something since they don't get to see a race, so they decided if it's not safe for race car drivers, maybe it's safe for fighters, and I would argue it wasn't really safe for either one.
So it's not safe for NASCAR, but hey, let's do an MMA show.
Yeah, go figure. But they had four fights. They had the aforementioned John Fitch Brian Foster fight, which was the number one ranking fight in the welterweight division. Keep in mind, all of the former World Series fighting fighters that are on this card are no longer champions or contenders. Everybody has to start over from scratch. But these two guys in the main event, or quasi-main event, at least get to fight for the number one ranking, which Fitch, the former champion of World Series Fighting, successfully obtained. Meanwhile, three other fights on this card. We had Jason High and Carlos Fodor. That went fairly well, I would say, for Jason High, the Kansas City Bandit, as he is known. But in the third round, he ran out of gas on his takedown attempts, and Carlos Fodor busted him up a little bit, and so you could see the blood and the sweat were all mixing together and leaving these bright smears all over the World Series of Fighting canvas. Oh. It was a visually stunning picture, but Jason High still pulled out the decision, so even though he lost the third round, he won the fight overall, so good for him. And after the main event, that's why I said quasi-main event, they billed one fight as the actual main event, but then they had another fight afterward to fill time, and that was Joao Zeferino, and what was the name of his opponent? Herman Tirado. They call Herman the Hitman, and he fought like a hitman too, because Zeferino was just blasting him with shots, and Tirado was walking through it like Scarface at the end of the movie. Like, Al Pacino just walking through the bullets like, I eat this for breakfast, come on. You want to play rough? Okay. And he just kept coming forward the whole time, and that's how he won the fight, because no matter what Zeffirino hit him with, Toronto would hit him with something harder. So he got the unanimous decision for that. And, let's see, there was one other fight that I haven't talked about yet. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, the Hani Marks fight. That was, with Shmelinho Rama at light heavyweight. And Rama had a pretty good first round, was tagging Marks on the feet, but then the next 2 rounds, Mark just took him down and held him down and managed to eke out a decision.
Well, I mean, it's good that they're trying a different avenue for fights, but I'm not sure their next show should be at a NASCAR show.
Or at least outdoors in inclement weather. Maybe not the best combination.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where they're going with the, stripping of the champions and having them at least fight for the number one contendership. I like that idea. It's something fresh, but...
Well, they almost had to do that because they lost the majority of their champions to UFC.
Yeah, it's going to happen like that. It's going to...
One of those we're going to be talking about is in the main event of a fight that's coming up for International Fight Week.
Now, speaking of International Fight Week, Stevie, we've talked about this in the past. We've talked about over the years how this is like one of their biggest shows of the year. It doesn't have that same feel. Now, do you think the Bisping... Well, I mean, like the July 4th show, I mean, when it was, I'm trying to think, like 2-3 years ago, this was like the true International Fight Week. You had different fighters, big names. I mean, there's no Cormier Jones. It's not, I mean, if Bisping and GSP was on the show, the hype would be a lot bigger.
Well, as you recall, we didn't end up getting Cormier Jones that weekend anyway. We got Cormier Anderson Silva.
And that was not as good as we hoped.
Well, it was a risky proposition for both men. I think we got the best we could out of a bad situation.
I remember watching that reaction video with Dana White telling Cormier that Jones got popped for a drug test. That was raw emotion right there.
Coincidentally enough, Brock Lesnar also got popped for a drug test on that same card a few weeks later.
Mm-hmm. And now he's fighting a Samoan this weekend.
Right. At the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view.
UFC, please don't get any ideas. Just don't. I shudder to think what kind of, if they were naming pay-per-views like they did in the day, if they would ever be as, well, not crude, but as unimaginative as UFC Great Balls of Fire.
Somewhere in my DVD archive, I actually have a UFC pay-per-view that's called UFC USA versus Canada.
Okay, that one's pretty unimaginative as well. I will give you that.
Right.
Now let's talk about the Tough 25 finale. Now, right now, we don't know what the co-main event is because it hasn't been determined yet. We do know Thiago Lima is one of the finalists. We just don't know his opponent.
Right.
And the main event, Justin Gaethje, 17-0 against Michael Johnson, a veteran of Ultimate Fighter himself.
That's right. And Gaethje, as you said, former World Series fighting lightweight champion, left to find potentially greener pastures in UFC, although right now, Michael Johnson is the favorite at -165. Gaethje is +145. But if you've seen the way Gaethje fights, it's something his teammate Brandon Gertz actually described to me very well in an interview this week. He just puts his head down, comes forward swinging. He's relentless. He wants to take your head off. And if you can't do that standing, he'll take you to the ground and take you apart and just make your life miserable. Gaethje is as aggressive as they come. He'll take a shot to give a shot.
And that's scary when you think of this weight class and someone that very easily could have gone to Bellator.
That's true.
Very, very easily.
The recruiting level for this kid was off the charts because undefeated, had blown through everybody in World Series fighting, some of them twice. You gotta think every single promotion wanted him. One Fighting would have wanted him, UFC would have wanted him, Bellator would have wanted him. Anybody that made the right money offer was gonna get Justin Gaethje, but it's UFC that gets him, And they are making him prove himself in his very first fight. He's not getting a cakewalk. He's getting a main event with a very tough fighter.
This is definitely not a cakewalk fight, Stevie. Come on now.
That's what I'm saying, is Michael Johnson is one bad mofo. You don't want to take him for granted in this division. He will definitely present a difficult obstacle, and that's why he is the favorite right now in this fight.
Really?
I just said so. Didn't you hear me read the line?
No, I did. I'm just going over the card as you mentioned that, and I don't want to think that.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. Johnson has lost 3 out of his last 4, but
yeah.
Before that, the list of people he'd beaten was no slouch. Edson Barboza, Melvin Gillard, Joe Lozon, and even that one fight out of the last 4 that he did win, he knocked out Dustin the Diamond Poirier. So let's not overlook Michael Johnson. There's a reason he's the favorite right now.
Yeah, but those fights were years ago.
Okay.
It's not recent history. And Gaethje, I think this is a showcase fight for him to win this fight. And I think, actually, I'm going to say Gaethje wins this fight by stoppage.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. But I also understand where the odds makers are coming from, because what you have to consider is it's a different playing field when you're going from the World Series of Fighting to UFC.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, we saw the same thing with Marlon Moraes. You know, he was just lights out in the bantamweight division in World Series Fighting, but ended up losing a split decision in a very close fight because it's a different level of competition.
Here's a name for you as a better comparison. Ill Will Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good example. Is you can be a big fish in a different pond, but once you go over to UFC, it may or may not work out that same way for you. Not everybody has the experience that Eddie Alvarez did, where he rose all the way up to become the lightweight champion. Some guys are Eddie Alvarez and some guys are Will Brooks, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
And some people are wondering, is this the trend of 2017? Now, I'm not saying Michael Johnson's going to do this, but I did read this week, and it has me thinking when it comes to main event fights. Do you think the rash of retirements over the last few months in UFC is a showing of the maturity of the sport as far as, you know, get in, get out, don't stay till you have permanent brain damage? Or do you think it has something to do with the new ownership in place?
You get guys who get emotional after a loss. You know, Anthony Johnson got emotional after he lost to Cormier the second time. Derek Lewis got emotional after he lost the fight that could have put him at the top of the heavyweight division. These guys have such big expectations for themselves, and they get really down on themselves when they don't win in the biggest fight of their career. I understand that. And then they unretire, and I understand that too. So they just need time to get over their emotions and then make a different choice. But some guys will genuinely retire because, as you said, they realize this sport doesn't necessarily provide for long-term health. If you stay in there and you get knocked out multiple times, it can be a very bad thing for you in your later life. So some guys will take that retirement if they're in a bad situation in a fight where they're not winning and that keeps happening to them over and over again. They may see the writing on the wall. But there's also a third possibility, which is why I say there's no such thing as an easy answer in this case. And that third possibility is they're unhappy with the new ownership. They're unhappy with Reebok being in control of all their sponsorship, that they can't wear their own sponsors on their shorts and their uniforms. And they may just feel like, I'll take the exit out, even if it means I can't fight for anybody else, because I can't get paid to make a living as a fighter here, because the amount I'm getting from Reebok doesn't cover my expenses.
I knew the sponsorship would come into this argument. It's something that it's only been a short term. It's not a long term thing right now. We don't have the long term numbers to really, you know, see the long term effect of the sponsorship deal with Reebok. It's just, I hate saying time will tell, but time will tell in this case.
Yeah. But
now,
it's just, no, you just can't call it any one thing at this point.
Yeah, it's true. Now, as far as the other fights on the main card, we've got Mark Diakese against Drakkar Klose.
Mm-hmm. And
Two undefeated fighters there.
We have some odds for that. Takas is minus 280. Close is plus 240.
Jared Cannonier against Nick Rokrick. We already talked about this fight earlier in the news.
That's right. And I think the line may have been scratched because of that, because I don't have a lineup.
Makes sense. Brad Tavares against Elias Teodoro. This fight I'm very interested in.
Yeah, Tavares is plus 120. Teodoro is minus 140. To me, Teodoro's been a prospect for a while. Somebody that I've been really high on as a fighter. So I expect big things from him in the future, even if this fight doesn't go his way.
And Marcel Fortuna against Jordan Johnson wraps up the main card.
Yes, plus 200 for Fortuna, minus 240 for Johnson.
Now, the prelims are very interesting here. There are some names that a lot of people will know on the prelims.
Like Overkill Angela Hill.
Against Ashley Yoder.
Mm-hmm.
CB Dolloway and Ed Sparkplug, or Short Fuse Herman.
God, get the name right. He's a former guest of the show.
I've been watching too much Sparkplug Holly matches lately, I guess. Jeez.
Oh, shit.
Dolloway and Herman. That's a fight. It's an interesting matchup in 2017, I will say that.
And Jessica I fighting Aspen Ladd.
So the undefeated Ladd at 4-0 against Evil Eye.
5-0.
But Evil Eye, Jekyll and Hyde at this point?
It's not a good situation for her in her current fighting career, with her having lost 5 out of her last 6.
And the Fight Pass prelims, Teruto Ishihara fights Gray Maynard. Is there a line on that one?
Probably, but I was just thinking how the mighty have fallen, because Gray Maynard used to be main eventing fights with Frankie Edgar, and here he is on Fight Pass.
Here he is, a contender at one point.
Yeah, but now the line for this fight is minus 265, favoring Ishihara, plus 225 for Gray.
And Tisha Torres and Juliana Lima is the first fight on the prelims. Are they sure about that?
Yeah, I would have put that higher myself, but maybe they just want to guarantee people tune in for the early fights by having that there. So, minus 310 for Torres and plus 255 for Lima.
Wow, that's craziness. All right, so let's quickly transition to UFC 213, and it's Amanda Nunes against Valentina Shevchenko, and it's for the women's bantamweight title. I'm having trouble with this one. Don't tell me the odds right now, because I'm gonna make a prediction first, and then you can tell me if I'm batshit crazy or not. I'm gonna go with Nunes.
Well, the odds leave it very wide open which way you would want to go with this, because Shevchenko is minus 115 and Nunes is minus 105. So the odds makers aren't really saying that either one of them is the dog in this fight. They're kind of both the favorite. I'm to the point now where I'm starting to get where Amanda Nunes is coming from when she says, I have to keep proving myself over and over again to people because they keep doubting me. And she's done it. She beat Shevchenko the first time they met by unanimous decision. Then she beat Tate for the bantamweight title. Then she beat Ronda Rousey by TKO. It's like, okay, everybody kept doubting Nunes, including me at one point. How many more times does she have to go out there and just win no matter what before people finally accept that she really is the champ?
I'm having trouble understanding that logic when it comes to the champion having to constantly prove themselves as the champ for a reason.
Right. And that's why I say I get where she's coming from, in that she should be respected like the champ that she is at this point. And it's just unfortunate for her that people continue to think that she's a weak champion or vulnerable, because honestly, she's getting better with every fight at this point. And who's to say that since she hasn't already beat Shevchenko once, that she isn't going to do it again, because she's probably a much better fighter now than the first time they fought. So I'm not going to take anything away from the champ. I give her all that respect that she's demanding and then some.
All right, the co-main, Yoel Romero and Robert Whittaker for the interim middleweight title.
Yeah, and I finally just have to suck it up and say Romero. Even though Whittaker is the minus 130 favorite, I'm going with the plus 110 dog because that is such a slim line for an underdog that I don't even think that's really relevant at this point. I think you watch what Romero has done to every single person he's faced in the middleweight division other than the champion. He has wrecked. And some cases it's been controversial, and some cases I've thought it's been cheap. But if you just look at the history and you look at the wins and you look at the fact that he's that age and still has that physique and still wrestles and fights the way he does, how can you really even doubt Romero at this point? Even though I don't necessarily like him, I can't doubt him.
Well, I think you've got your fantasy booker hat on because I think you want to see Romero and Bisping.
I don't necessarily care if it's Whitaker or Romero. I'm just going with the fact that every time that I've doubted Romero, he's proved me wrong. So once again, I have to say, I give the respect to the man who's done what he's done and accomplished what he's accomplished.
Now let's move on to, a fight that hasn't had a lot of buzz. Okay, I'm joking. Alistair Overeem and Fabricio Verdum.
Yeah, the very man we were talking about earlier in our news segment. So this should be a very key fight for the heavyweight division when you look at the current rankings, with Overeem being number 3 and Verdum being number 1. There's something big going to happen out of this fight as long as both men make it to the cage.
Well, we already referenced July 4th holiday. There's going to be a lot of fireworks in this fight.
I think so too. And we got another super close line here because Overeem is the minus 125. Verdum is the plus 105. So what's your prediction, Peter?
It will not go to the judges?
Come on, be a little more concrete than that.
I've got Verdum winning by knockout.
I understand where you're coming from, but it's that same issue with Overeem where he starts out really strong and then later on he can gas out. So if there's a fighter out there that's capable of taking advantage of that, it's Fabricio Verdum. He's a guy that you don't want to go a long fight with because he seems to get better in longer fights, and he's also got incredible jiu-jitsu submissions. So I'm looking at their respective records. The only person that Verdum has lost to in his last 5 fights is the current champion who knocked him out, Stipe Miocic. And you look at Overeem in his last 5 fights, and his only loss was also being knocked out by Stipe Miocic. So both of these guys would like a rematch with the champion, but I don't know that that would work out any better for either one of them.
So what do you think? Those fights were just lucky shots by Miocic?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think you would get anything different. The way Stipe Miocic is rolling right now, I think he would probably do the same thing to either one of them again in a rematch. So I guess all things being equal, I'm leaning ever so slightly to Overeem here.
All right, so we want you to key up the next fight, Stevie, because we have some fighters here that Curtis Blades and Daniel
Omelnichuk.
Thank you. That fight, I'm interested in the odds because I really don't know where to go with this one.
Well, you got about the longest line of the entire main card in this particular fight. Because Blades is minus 800.
800?
Minus 800. You heard me correctly. Omelnichuk is plus 550.
That's tempting.
Yeah. Now
it is tempting.
Now the situation here is that the only fight that Blades lost was to Francis Ngannou, who I've been saying for a while on this show, and to you in particular, I've been saying Francis Ngannou is the real deal. We all need to keep our eye on him going forward. So no surprise that Blades lost that fight, even though they might rematch and win, it could be a coin flip given they're each on an upward trajectory. I would look at Blades as having the bigger upside of the two, whereas Omelnichuk, well, he's very streaky. He lost 2, he won 3, he lost his last 2.
Yeah, but we've seen this before. We've seen this before, where we have someone with a huge line, high expectation for an easy win, and he gets caught himself or knocked out right on the button. I mean, don't think Blades winning is going to be an easy prediction. I mean, I'm going to go with Blades, but if he loses, I won't be as surprised as some of the other odds makers out there.
Perhaps so, but let me just go ahead and give you the odds for the other fight on the main card before you make your prediction. Jim Miller plus 210, Anthony Pettis minus 250. And if you're a betting man, I would actually favor the dog a little bit because, quite honestly, Anthony Pettis has been on a big downslide.
He's not the same fighter, that's for sure.
No, not even close. His brother is probably the better Pettis of the two right now.
Whoa, we think you're ready to say that, eh? Okay. I'm going to say Miller, and I hate doing this, I'm going to say judges.
Yeah, it could end up being a split decision, but the one thing you know about Jim Miller is you give him any kind of chance in any kind of fight, he will go the distance if necessary. He will go out there and put on a show. So, unless Anthony Pettis really tags him with something early, Jim Miller's just going to keep coming and coming and coming.
Yeah, I don't... You'd be surprised how many times Miller's won fights like that. Like, just keep coming and coming. It's not like Clay Guida, but it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah. Oh, coincidentally, Clay Guida put on a hell of a performance in his last fight.
Oh, did he ever? Prelims, really quick. We've got Travis Brown against Aleksei Olnik. I'm going to say Brown, and I think Rousey will be in this corner.
Yeah. Hoppy Brown is your favorite here. Minus 220 to plus 180.
Chad Laprise and Brian Camozzi. This could be an underrated fight here.
A huge line in favor of Laprise. Minus 550 to plus 425.
Plus 425?
Yeah, Camozzi's got a big underdog tag on him right here.
Okay, what about Thiago Moreta Santos against Gerald Mishkart? Hope I'm saying that right.
Plus 125 to Mishkart and minus 145 to Santos.
Jordan Mean and Bilal Muhammad. That one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, this one's pretty darn close. Remember the name Bilal Muhammad is minus 160 and Jordan Mean is plus 140.
Wasn't there a rap song, Remember the Name?
Yes, we've discussed that.
Fight Pass prelims, there's 3 of them. Rob Font and Douglas Silva de Andrade. Cody Stamann against Terrion Ware and James Buknovic against Trevin Giles.
Andrade plus 260, Font minus 320. Ware plus 235, Stamann minus 275.
What's on tap for Thursday night AMP?
We'll be talking about, goodness gracious, Great Balls of Fire.
And hopefully some New Japan in the United States this past weekend as well.
Right, 2 excellent G1 special cards, one that aired live on Access TV and the Fight Network, the other that aired exclusively on New Japan World, but will replay on Access this Friday. So we had some fun cards with some very memorable main events, including one for the ages with Kenny Omega and the Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii.